When you're 4'10", a podium is not your best friend. So maybe you can't see me, but hopefully you can hear me. The voice is pretty strong. Many of you out there, like me, know the good fortune of having been born in Des Moines, in other words, a Des Moines native. Like my wonderfully supportive, generous late husband, Brian, father of my children, like my delightful, fun, contributing children, Steve, Deb, and Lisa, and like my treasured grandchildren, Brandon and Zoe. And many of you know the fortune you have of having adopted Des Moines as your home at some point in your life. That would be like my ever dependable, much loved son-in-law, Barry, and like the greatly missed, generous community leader, my late husband, G. David Hurd, who challenged others in Des Moines to see the city as a world-class city, which it was and is. To say the Des Moines I grew up in is nothing like the Des Moines I enjoy today is literally an understatement. A main difference between my day as a child in Des Moines and today is the abundance of nonpartisan nonprofits that fuel much of the activism and bring out our spirit of generosity. Let's look at some of those and how they provide some of the good fortune that all of us have in living in Des Moines today. Think about this. Where else could you enjoy 3 days of an internationally recognized, award-winning, juried arts festival, and while you're there, watch, or better yet, become a volunteer that also builds the bones for a Habitat for Humanity house? What a combination, arts and home building. Housing, to continue on that theme, if shelter is one of your passions, you can contribute sheets, towels, household supplies, or dollars to Anawim Housing. All of us can support Iowa's Shelter and Services in their work to provide the homeless shelter, meals, support, and hope. Another worthwhile charity, have you ever heard of Family Promise? They provide a month of shelter for a homeless family through the collaboration of a lot of churches in Des Moines, and support services to help this family find steady income and secure housing, because every child deserves a home. Food insecurity, like me, this may be a passion of yours. We as a country have yet to take seriously enough responsibility to solve the food insecurity problem that plagues our cities, our towns, our rural areas. Instead, the problem has grown to a degree that should cause every American to pause and reflect on our use of resources and how much food we waste. Until that problem is solved, we can be very thankful in Des Moines for the DMARC food pantries, founded in 1975. Think about this. In 2014, the food pantries assisted approximately 32,000 individuals. Now they are assisting, 2 years into COVID, approximately 60,000 individuals annually. We simply can't have people, families going hungry in this city of plenty that we all enjoy. We also have the very effective Food Bank of Iowa right here that sends trucks full of nutritious food and fresh vegetables to 55 counties in Iowa each week, in addition to other initiatives. Have you heard of Eat Greater Des Moines? They rescue extra food from restaurants, convenience stores, caterers, and distribute them to organizations that serve Iowans facing hunger. Doesn't that sound like worth looking into? Maybe like me, conservation and the environment is a passion of yours. Back in the day, that means the time that I was growing up and the time that all of my fellow sages were growing up. The subject of conservation and environment, the subjects were not even on the radar of the majority of people. Thank heavens today they're front and center. Living in the heart of the Corn Belt, none of us can escape the reality of the degradation that has happened to our Iowa topsoil and the pollution that is in all of our waters and streams. It's like an alarm bell going off, but is anyone listening? There's a rich number of local nonprofits here in Des Moines that are tackling these problems and need and deserve our support. They can educate any of us interested in learning more. And that's a wonderful thing about SAGES. The older we get, the more we realize how much we don't know. And there's just an insatiable desire to want to learn more, take more classes, join more groups, have more discussions. Some of these nonprofits in our time, or in our town, are like the Iowa Nature Conservancy. They're committed to preserving Iowa's natural landscapes by land and water conservation. Or there's the Iowa Environmental Council that's committed to protect and preserve Iowa's environment. Great Outdoors Foundation, all the great work they do, and particularly their efforts to bring us this icon, the wonderful, great river trails that we will be enjoying in a few years. Iowa Rivers Revival, you can guess from their name what they do. Arts and culture, absolutely a mark of a world-class city. And boy, do we have a lot of those in Des Moines. Although it opened in 1948, I was 4 years old then, come to think of it. I have no recollection of our superb Des Moines Arts Center growing up in the 50s. I think it was too far west and transportation was too hard to get there. There was no Papa John Sculpture Park, and what on earth was public art? Today in Des Moines, some more of those arts and cultures. Civic Music Association still brings us monthly great entertainment. That organization was founded in 1925 by three very visionary women, of course. And they are the precursor today of our fabulous Des Moines Opera, the significant and wonderful Des Moines Symphony that we have. Today, too, we have the Des Moines Music Coalition, the very talented Gay Men's Chorus, and Mainframe Studios for artists. Back then, we had K&T Theater and our Des Moines Community Playhouse. It's now 100 years old. Today, we enjoy, along with the Playhouse, Des Moines Performing Arts, Iowa Stage Theater, Pyramid Theater, Hoyt Sherman, and a number of others. If the areas of social justice and human service are important to you, there's so many outlets for our support. Urban Dreams, Creative Vision, Justice for Our Neighbors, Iowa Legal Aid, Interfaith Alliance of Iowa, United Way, Oak Ridge Neighborhoods. Health and mental health, that may be something that's particularly of interest to you. I can assure you that back in the 50s, 60s, there was attention to health, but the idea of mental health wasn't even mentioned. It was an embarrassment to families. Today, we have places like Orchard Place, Easter Seals, Child Serve, On With Life, Des Moines Pastoral Counseling Services, Planned Parenthood. If supporting of previously marginalized communities, then join me in supporting some of these nonprofits like Pride Week, One Iowa, Iowa Safe Schools, First Friday Breakfast Club, and their annual scholarships to LGBT seniors around Iowa. I can assure you none of these existed when any of the sages and myself were growing up. Community betterment, there just seems to be no end to these opportunities and gifts to our city. Waterworks Park Foundation, for example, completed the last couple of years, phase 1 of a massive project that they have as they envision this wonderful, how can they bring more and more recreation to this wonderful, huge park we have right in the middle of our city. Lordson Skate Park, who would have ever thought we'd have a skate park, skateboard park, let alone the largest one in the country. Some of the other community betterment things that go on, organizations like Cultural and Iowa International Center, they help us learn about and present opportunities to welcome immigrants and refugees to our country. to our state, which we certainly need to do. Easter Lake North Shore Project, that's a new initiative that's underway that will provide a totally adaptive recreational experience for all ages and abilities in the cleanest lake in Iowa. Imagine a clean lake in Iowa, and that's Easter Lake. So as you can see, I and my fellow sages live and enjoy a very different Des Moines than our younger selves did. What will you do to help it continue to be a very fortunate place to live in? Appreciation to the ever engaged, vibrant Connie for providing significant gathering and fun community gatherings like this. Kudos to the entire business publications talented staff under the excellent guidance of Susanna. You're all treasures. To the Community Foundation team, without whose support we would not be the community of generosity that we are today. One last item, it's in the form of an invitation next spring and summer for you to visit the reimagined Robert D. Ray Asian Gardens many times and enjoy watching and experience a new garden blossom. Its care and maintenance will be under the watchful eye at that point of Kim Perez, the new president of our beautiful botanical garden, and her very talented team. Thank you.